How does a virtually unknown KGB officer rise to become one of the most powerful and controversial leaders in modern history? On August 9, 1999, Russia's President Boris Yeltsin introduced Vladimir Putin as the new acting prime minister. At the time, most Russians had never heard of him, and a mere 2% of the population supported him as a potential president. Yet, within a month of his appointment, a series of apartment bombings shook the nation, leaving over 300 dead. The events plunged Russia into chaos and fear, paving the way for Putin's rapid ascent. 6 months later, he was elected president with a promise of strength and stability. But who is Vladimir Putin, really? How did he rise to power so quickly? And why does his legacy remain so divisive? To understand Putin, we must delve into the events that shaped him, from his KGB roots to his strategic maneuvering during Russia's most turbulent years. Transition. To understand the man, we must first understand the world that created him. 2. Putin's early years in KGB foundations. Born in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, on October 7, 1952, Vladimir Putin grew up in a working-class family. His early life was shaped by the scars of World War II and the tough environment of post-war Soviet Russia. Putin was an average student but developed a keen interest in martial arts and intelligence stories, particularly those glorifying Soviet spies. In 1975, after graduating from Leningrad State University with a law degree, Putin achieved his dream of joining the KGB. Unlike many recruits who were coerced, Putin joined willingly, driven by a desire to serve his country and the allure of the intelligence world. His first assignments were administrative, but in the early 1980s, Putin was selected for elite foreign intelligence training in Moscow. Following his training, Putin was stationed in Dresden, East Germany, a hub of Cold War espionage. His mission included recruiting informants, gathering intelligence, and stealing Western technology to bridge the Soviet Union's growing technological gap. While Putin's role was not high-profile, the experience gave him valuable insights into Western weaknesses and the importance of information control. Transition. But even as Putin honed his skills in espionage, the Soviet Union was crumbling from within. 3. The collapse of the Soviet Union and Putin's transition. The 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union was a seismic event that reshaped the world order and deeply affected Vladimir Putin. By then, he had returned to Leningrad, working as an aide to Anatoly Sobchak, a prominent reformist and the city's mayor. While Putin managed logistics and security, he witnessed the chaos of Russia's transition to democracy and capitalism. The economy imploded, life expectancy dropped, and inflation rendered the ruble nearly worthless. Ordinary Russians experienced a dramatic decline in living standards, while oligarchs exploited the system to amass vast wealth. This period left Putin with a profound disdain for what he saw as the West's humiliation of Russia. When Sobchak lost re-election in 1996, Putin moved to Moscow. Through a combination of networking and loyalty, he quickly ascended the political ladder. By 1998, he was appointed director of the FSB, the successor to the KGB. Transition. With his meteoric rise in Moscow, Putin became Yeltsin's trusted confidant, setting the stage for his ultimate power grab. 4. The apartment bombings and the Chechen War. In 1999, Russia was reeling from economic collapse, political instability, and separatist violence in Chechnya. Amid this backdrop, a series of devastating apartment bombings killed over 300 people in Moscow and Volgodonsk. The attacks, attributed to Chechen terrorists, terrified the nation. Vladimir Putin, then the newly appointed prime minister, responded with uncompromising rhetoric. "We'll waste them in the outhouse." He launched a massive bombing campaign in Chechnya, portraying himself as the defender of Russian stability. The war, coupled with his decisive response to the bombings, catapulted Putin's popularity. However, questions about the bombings linger. A suspicious incident in Ryazan, where residents reported a potential bombing thwarted by local police, raised doubts. The FSB later claimed it was a training exercise, but lab tests revealed the presence of RDX, the same explosive used in previous attacks. speculation persists that the bombings were orchestrated to consolidate power. Transition. Despite the controversy, Putin's strongman image resonated with a population desperate for order. 5. Putin's first term, strength, amid tragedy. In March 2000, Vladimir Putin was elected president with 53% of the vote. His first major crisis came just months later with the sinking of the Kursk, a nuclear-powered submarine. The disaster, caused by a failed torpedo launch, killed all 118 crew members. Putin's response was widely criticized. He initially downplayed the incident, refused international aid, and delayed meeting with victims' families. The tragedy exposed weaknesses in Russia's military and raised questions about Putin's leadership. Despite this setback, Putin implemented reforms that stabilized Russia's economy. Rising oil prices and strategic alliances with oligarchs strengthened his grip on power. His government cracked down on dissent, sidelined political rivals, and consolidated media control. Transition. While Putin restored Russia's economy, his methods revealed a darker side to his leadership. 6. NATO expansion and Putin's geopolitical ambitions. The post-Cold War expansion of NATO deeply alarmed Putin. In 1999, Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic joined the alliance, followed by 7 more countries in 2004, including former Soviet states. For Putin, NATO's encroachment was both a provocation and an existential threat. Determined to reassert Russia's influence, Putin adopted a strategy of hybrid warfare, combining military aggression, cyber attacks, and propaganda. His goal was clear: destabilize Western unity and restore Russia's status as a global power. Transition, but Putin's ambitions would soon lead to conflicts that would define his legacy on the world stage. 7. The Orange Revolution and Ukraine's defiance. In late 2004, Ukraine went to the polls to elect a president. This wasn't just a choice between 2 politicians, it was a pivotal decision about Ukraine's future alignment, closer to the West or firmly in Russia's orbit. The pro-Russian candidate Viktor Yanukovych faced off against the pro-Western reformer Viktor Yushchenko. During the campaign, Yushchenko was mysteriously poisoned with dioxin, leaving his face permanently disfigured. The opposition accused Russia of involvement, though no definitive proof emerged. Despite this, Yushchenko's campaign gained momentum, and exit polls showed him as the likely winner. However, when the official results declared Yanukovych victorious, allegations of massive voter fraud led to nationwide protests known as the Orange Revolution. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians took to the streets, demanding a fair election. The protests succeeded in forcing a revote, and Yushchenko emerged as the legitimate winner. For Putin, the Orange Revolution was a disaster. It symbolized the West's growing influence in a region he considered Russia's sphere of control. The loss of Ukraine as a dependable ally was a significant blow to his geopolitical ambitions and set the stage for years of tension between the 2 countries. Transition. While Ukraine resisted, Putin focused on consolidating power at home, ensuring that such dissent would never threaten his own rule. 8. Consolidating power. The strongman emerges. As Putin entered his second term in 2004, his grip on Russia tightened. He restructured the political system to centralize authority, sidelining regional governors and diminishing the power of independent institutions. The Russian media, once a vibrant space for debate, became a mouthpiece for the Kremlin. Putin also targeted oligarchs who posed a threat to his dominance. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, one of Russia's richest men and a vocal critic of the government, was arrested on charges of tax evasion and fraud. His company, Yukos, was dismantled, and its assets were transferred to state-controlled entities. The message was clear: in Putin's Russia, wealth and power were conditional on loyalty to the regime. During this period, Putin cultivated a nationalist image. He presented himself as the protector of traditional Russian values, standing against Western decadence. This rhetoric resonated with many Russians who longed for stability and pride after the chaos of the 1990s. Transition. But as Putin strengthened his hold on Russia, the global stage was shifting in ways that would reignite his confrontation with the West. 9. The Georgia War, a warning to the West. In 2008, tensions between Russia and its small neighbor Georgia boiled over. Georgia's pro-Western president, Mikhail Saakashvili, had sought closer ties with NATO and the European Union. For Putin, this was unacceptable. When fighting broke out in the separatist regions of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Georgia under the pretext of protecting ethnic Russians. The conflict lasted just 5 days but sent a clear message. Russia would use military force to maintain its influence in former Soviet territories. 10th, annexation of Crimea and the war in eastern Ukraine. In 2014, Ukraine's pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych was ousted after mass protests known as the Maidan Revolution. The new government leaned heavily toward the West, which Putin saw as a direct threat to Russia's interests. Seizing the opportunity, Putin orchestrated the annexation of Crimea, a strategic peninsula in the Black Sea. Using a combination of covert operations and a hastily organized referendum, Russia took control of Crimea in March 2014. The international community condemned the move as illegal, but Putin framed it as the return of Russian land. Simultaneously, pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, backed by Moscow, began a bloody conflict with Ukrainian forces. The war, which continues to this day, has claimed thousands of lives and further strained Russia's relationship with the West. Transition. While Ukraine resisted, Putin's ambitions began to unravel under the weight of international backlash and domestic challenges. 11th, Putin's weakening grip, challenges at home and abroad. Despite his outward confidence, cracks began to appear in Putin's regime. Western sanctions, imposed after the annexation of Crimea, took a toll on Russia's economy. Oil prices plummeted, further weakening the country's financial stability. Domestically, Putin faced growing dissent. Protests erupted in major cities, fueled by allegations of corruption and declining living standards. Opposition leaders like Alexei Navalny gained traction, using social media to expose the excesses of Putin's inner circle. Internationally, Putin's aggressive policies isolated Russia. NATO strengthened its presence in Eastern Europe, and alliances like the European Union and the United States imposed coordinated sanctions. Putin's dream of reasserting Russia as a global superpower faced significant obstacles. Transition. But for a man who built his career on resilience and reinvention, Putin's story is far from over. 12th conclusion. The enigma of Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin's rise and rule encapsulate the complexities of modern Russia. From his early days in the KGB to his current position as a geopolitical disruptor, Putin has shaped Russia in his image: authoritarian, ambitious, and fiercely resistant to external influence. Yet his legacy is far from secure. While he has restored a sense of national pride for many Russians, his actions have left the country isolated and economically vulnerable. His reliance on fear and control may sustain his rule for now, but history has shown that no regime is invincible. As Putin faces growing challenges both at home and abroad, the world watches closely. Is he a master strategist or a leader whose ambitions have outpaced his capabilities? The answer will shape not only Russia's future, but the global order for years to come.